In our modeling work, we like to really try to understand what the barriers and challenges are, like actually when you try to hire somebody to electrify your home. So what better way to do that than do it yourself and go through that process yourself. So I did that with my wife Julie about 10 years ago now, and have been living with all electric home for about 9 or 10 years. And then I've also been helping friends and family through that process as well. So I've learned a lot along the way, and we'll be talking about that personal experience, but hopefully can also get into some questions you might have about what it takes, and can get into that. I've been interviewed a lot by the media about heat pumps recently. So these are some of the articles about my work. Okay, so why would you want to electrify your home? I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of this, but just trying to keep things simple. If you break down the greenhouse gas emissions in Denver, about half of that comes from electricity right now. This is a number of years old, so it's probably outdated a bit, because we know that electricity piece is shrinking as we get more and more renewables onto the grid. And then about a third, liquid fuels. And then I'll just put out that you're all probably familiar with the fact that Xcel Energy plans to deliver 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050 and 80% by 2030. So it's quickly approaching 80% and getting to zero after that. So then this next piece, liquid fuels, we've all seen projections of EV growth. Whether it happens quite that fast or not, I don't know. But what I'm really focused on is that last piece. In Colorado, it's natural gas. In other places of the country, there's fuel oil and propane that are used as well. But I think we need to have more focus on that last piece and how to get rid of the emissions from that last piece. And when you look at the impact you can have from different actions related to your home, really electrifying it, and especially space heating, switching from a gas furnace to a heat pump, for example, is one of the most impactful changes you can make to your home or lifestyle compared to eating vegan for a year or avoiding a flight. It even surpasses avoiding driving an average gasoline vehicle for a whole year. And then you also get additional benefits if you also convert a gas water heater, range, dryer to electric. And I'm going to be a little bit provocative here. Some of you might not like this, but I've seen some articles start to question, like, if you put solar on your roof, are you actually reducing carbon emissions? Well, what you're doing is probably just offsetting the amount that the utility is installing. So, I think it's, if you want to put solar on the roof, that's great. Still do it. But I think as you get more and more solar onto the electricity system, the value of that solar, if you don't pair it with a battery, may not actually offset emissions because you're already saturated with solar on the grid. Okay, we can talk about that later if you all want to. So in some of my modeling work, people often ask the question, well, what if the grid doesn't get as clean as people say they want it to, or as fast as the Biden administration's goals? In some of our modeling work, we looked across 5 different scenarios, a pretty wide range of how fast the grid will decarbonize. And across all 5 of those scenarios, we found that switching to a heat pump in every of the 48 contiguous states still reduces carbon emissions kind of across all those different scenarios. So, I often hear people say, well, you shouldn't do it yet because the grid's still dirty. But what we found is that, hey, in every single case, you're still going to have lifetime greenhouse gas emissions savings. Okay, so that's a lot of the why. A lot of us are probably here, motivated by climate reasons. But there's other reasons that you might want to put in a heat pump too. Healthier indoor air. Modern heat pumps, they're designed to run continuously and often at a lower speed. and provide a lot. They can provide a lot more filtration of the indoor air in your home. So healthier indoor air, more even and comfortable temperatures. A lot of traditional heating systems, furnace or standard air conditioner, will just turn on, then turn off, and the temperatures won't be as even. Whereas modern heat pumps, which are, like I said, are designed to run at a steady, modulating temperature, they're constantly circulating the air among all of the homes in the house if it's a forced air system, and just make the home a lot more comfortable and have more even temperatures. So that's another motivation that a lot of people have with putting in a heat pump. And then there's other reasons too, just avoiding combustion of gases inside the home and potential dangers with carbon monoxide poisoning. And then, it's not common, but there are explosions that happen. This one was in Denver a few years ago. So that's something else that might be motivating for some people. And then if you really think about it, like when a piece of equipment, whether it's a furnace or boiler or water heater, is nearing its end of its lifetime, that is such a great opportunity to consider replacing it with something else. Because that, those lifetimes are pretty long. 16 to 20 years for a furnace, 8 to 13 years for a water heater. And each new one of those that's installed is going to be around for, decades. So anyway, if you have a piece of equipment like that is nearing its end of life, it's just a great opportunity to think about replacing it with something that's electric. Okay, and I think we're probably all aware there's lots of incentives available right now to help offset the upfront cost of home electrification. There's tax credits, federal tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act. Those are listed off on the right. Those are all available now. There's also federal rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act, which are still coming later and are mostly aimed at lower income households that maybe wouldn't be able to take advantage of the tax credits, but those are still not yet available. And then Colorado has some state incentives. And then there's also Excel rebates if you're in the Excel energy territory. So $4,700 total for a heat pump. And if you put in two heat pumps, you can get that more than once. These federal tax credits, you can get them every year for the next 8 years. And then for heat pump water heater, $3,000 total, and also $2,200 for insulation and air sealing. So now is a great time to be thinking about doing some of these projects. Okay, maybe not a great reason everybody's doing it, but there are a lot of people doing it. These are just some photos of friends that I've helped, and this is my parents' Unitarian church in Illinois, where they put in a bunch of heat pumps to heat their religious education building and their main sanctuary. Okay, so I'm going to share my experience going through this, electrifying an older 1950s home that had a gas boiler and a gas water heater that we converted over to be electric. And maybe you'll learn something from that experience. But every home is a little bit different, so we'll certainly have time for questions at the end too, if you have questions about your home. Okay, so what did we do? Well, because I work in this field, the first thing I knew to do was to get an energy audit. And when we were looking to buy the home, we heard about something called an Energy Star mortgage. I don't think those are available anymore, but as part of this process, we were able to get an energy audit and get some incentives. So the energy audit came back and gave us a list of priorities, and Xcel Energy right now has a deal where you can get $600 value energy audit done for only $150. So that can be a great place to start. They can make recommendations, list of priorities, and it's not like, it's a third party, so it's not like they're going to be recommending something that they're selling. So yeah, and they can do something called a blower door test, where they see how leaky or airtight your home is, and see if there's holes that you didn't even know about. They can use an infrared camera to look to see if there's missing insulation, things like that. So that's a great place to start. And only $150 through Excel right now. So after that, we did attic air sealing, where they went up into the attic and sealed all of the little holes around the tops of walls and all of the electrical penetrations in the ceiling. Put in a whole bunch of insulation, and that was great. They also, if your home was built before 1980, maybe even during the 80s, it probably doesn't have any wall insulation. Sometimes they get retrofitted, but it's really not as common as blowing insulation into the attic. So we had insulation put into our walls. They had to come in and drill holes, 2-inch holes every 16 inches to fill all those stud cavities. But now our home's a lot more comfortable. You know, those walls are a warmer surface and reduces the load on the house, which, coming later, makes it easier to put in a heat pump. And yeah, reduces drafts too, makes your home more airtight. Okay, so we also did some crawl space insulation. I'm not going to get into too many of these details, but if you're curious, we can talk about it. So I have the R values here for attic, walls, crawl space. Our windows were double pane and low E, and they're not the best quality, but they were good enough. So we just left those as is. Through this process, we also, our air leakage, kind of before and after we did this work, was reduced quite a bit, down to around 5 air changes per hour at 50 pascals. And yeah, this feels great, right? If you go out there on a cold day, at our neighbor's house, all the snow melted because their house was leaking so much heat through the attic and melting all that snow, whereas our house had a nice blanket of snow on top. So anyway, that felt great. Okay, but then our boiler started to fail, and our baby was due in a month. So yeah, I was not expecting that. I was not ready with a replacement plan for my house. So I borrowed some space heaters and plugged those in. And I started researching what I wanted to replace this with. And I somehow discovered a trick to get the boiler. If you push this one part to the side, the electrical thing made contact again and it would work. So that bought me some time, but I knew it wasn't going to last forever. So I researched a lot of different options, including we have really nice baseboard radiators that would have been great to reuse. We decided not to go that route. I can talk about that later if you're curious. We decided to go with a ductless, sometimes called mini split heat pump, where there's an outdoor unit, just like a regular air conditioning unit. This one's sideways, side discharge, and then we have an indoor unit. And we decided to just put one in. Relatively small house, single story, and we just have one indoor unit, one outdoor unit. For the other rooms, we decided, we didn't really want to put one indoor unit in each of the bedrooms. We decided to put electric resistance cove heaters in the other rooms, and this is a good solution for us. It can provide heat when the doors are closed at night, and they still get lots of heat to these rooms when the doors are open. So this works for us. Other people might prefer to put in something else. If I were doing it again today, I don't know, I might look at putting a little mini air handler in the attic that could supply ducts to the different rooms. So there's a lot of options out there. This is what we did at the time, and it works. Okay, big question though. A lot of people have existing ductwork, and yes, you can use that. If you have boilers, the ductless works well. If you have ducts, you can get an existing heat pump that works with an air handler that looks just like an existing furnace. So it's kind of a drop-in replacement and provides both heating and air conditioning through that one appliance. Okay, big question was, do we need to upgrade our electrical panel? This is an old house, 1950 construction. It had a 100 amp panel. Since I'm an engineer and I was doing my professional engineer exam at the time, actually what I was studying how to do the NEC, the National Electric Code calculations, And so I knew how to do those calculations myself, and it came out to 98 amps, and we had a 100 amp breaker. So we barely just made it where we didn't have to upgrade to larger service. We did have to get a new electrical panel though, because we didn't have enough slots. It was a really old panel, and all the slots were basically full. So had an electrician come out and put in a new panel, still 100 amps, and had a lot more slots in it. We were able to fit in even the new arc fault protectors on the receptacle circuits. So yeah, that's what worked for us. It was a lot cheaper than having to get upgrade to a 200 amp panel. Okay, so that's moving on. We got heating, we got cooling. We have a whole house fan. We still use that a lot. We put in a new, quieter one with like doors that automatically close and stuff, so the house could be more airtight. But we do have air conditioning now, which is great, and especially when there's wildfire smoke out, we use that a lot just to stay cool and keep the indoor air healthy. Okay, for the water heater. So about a year later, we decided to replace the water heater. It wasn't at the end of life. It was maybe still had half its life left. But we decided to put in an electric heat pump water heater. And this is what the old one looked like. This is what the new one looks like. And yeah, again, this was like 8 years ago, and they've come a long way since then. They're about 50% more efficient than they were when this one got put in. And heat pump water heaters are great. They're 3 to 5 times as efficient as traditional gas water heaters. And you'll definitely save money on water heating with those. They are a little bit bigger, generally. You want to upsize them because they don't recover quite as quickly as a gas water heater. So they tend to be a little bit bigger. It was a 40-gallon tank. We replaced it with a 50-gallon tank. Some people even upsize to 80 gallons if they have a large family. And they're a bit noisier. They make the fan sound. That's when they runs for about an hour or 2 hours, and that fan sound is just something to be aware of. But they do save money, and they're very efficient. And these work kind of like the reverse of a refrigerator. They take heat from the air surrounding them and put it into the tank, and it cools down the space. Now this is in our laundry room / pantry, and we don't really notice it getting cool because we keep the door open. And so basically it makes the heating system work a little bit harder. And people say, well, why would you want to do that? It's stealing heat from the heating system. But the way I think about it, it's just like a kind of a 2-stage or cascaded heat pump, right? Because now your heat pump is just providing heat to the space, and then the space is providing heat via another heat pump to the tank. So I don't think that's a bad thing. And one thing, so our old heat pump, our old water heater, it was open combustion. So you see this pipe right there? It needs makeup air, right? If you have an open combustion appliance, you need 2 6-inch holes in the wall to provide that makeup air. Now that room got cold during the winter, right? If you have 2 6-inch holes that are open to the outside. So that room got cold previously. So anyway, and yeah, the new one, it gets cold if you leave the door closed, but if you leave the door open, it's not too bad. Okay. I forgot to talk about the mini split. So I tried to get some quotes for this, tried to get contractors out, and I could not get any to actually give me a quote. I probably could have tried harder, but I had people come out, and then they said they would call me, said they would give me a quote, but I never heard anything. So eventually got sick of that and decided to put it in myself, and I just hired a refrigeration technician to hook up the lines and paid $150 to do that part. I would not recommend going that approach. I think the market has completely changed. I heard about a friend of ours who put in a heat pump recently. They were talking to a contractor a few years ago, and their business was like 5% heat pumps and the rest traditional HVAC. And then they just finally, a few years later, talked to him again, He said 80% of his business is heat pumps now. So there's a lot more people out there putting in heat pumps. So hopefully, I see it. I hear it on radio ads. I see it on HVAC contractors' websites. They're advertising heat pumps now. So hopefully, you won't have that problem. Okay. So water heater. Our range and dryer were already electric, so we were kind of lucky in that we didn't have to worry about running new circuits for those things. So in January 2016, we were able to shut off our gas. Excel came out, put this lock on our meter, and yeah, we've been electric since then. Okay, so one question people have is, does it cost more to operate? And this is something I study in my modeling work quite a bit as well. And so from our personal experience, I have 4 years of utility bills here. The first 2 were before we electrified. The second 2 are after we electrified. And it's kind of messy because we had a baby, started doing a lot of cloth diapers in the clothes dryer, and got an EV, and slightly different temperatures for these different years. But you can see that compared to the very first year, to our 2 years being all electric, our bills are about the same, maybe a little bit lower. Now, I'm going to show you the year between those, 2015. This is when we had electric heat, but we still had gas water heating. Our bills were quite a bit higher. And this gray portion here, that's just because we pay extra to get the wind power from Excel. So you can count that or not count that, depending on what you want. But yeah, that middle year, our bills were quite a bit higher. Most of what we were paying for gas was the fixed charge, the $16 a month that you pay regardless of how much gas you use. So that made our bills go up for that 1 year. When we went all electric and we're no longer paying that $16 a month, that's like $200 extra you're saving. So our bills kind of went back down after that. So anyway, in Colorado, with the way that electricity and gas bills are right now, I think this is still kind of the case. Like, you might save, your bills might go up a little, especially if you didn't have air conditioning before and then you start using air conditioning, your bills might go up. But you might be more comfortable, right, because you're using air conditioning. And some people, your bills might end up going down. It just kind of depends. A couple of years ago, when the gas prices spiked, then maybe you would have saved a lot, right? Gas prices tend to be more volatile than electricity prices. So that's just another consideration. Okay, I'm going to share some tips and then some common questions, and then hopefully we can open up for Q&A. I mentioned getting an energy audit is just a great place to start. If your home is not well insulated, and that is always going to help make your home more comfortable and reduce heating and cooling loads, make it easier to put in a heat pump. You can put in a cheaper heat pump. In some of my modeling work, we found you could save thousands, up to like $4,000 by putting in a smaller heat pump if you do insulation and air sealing first. If the equipment is kind of nearing its end of expected lifetime, consider replacing it early, because replacing it as an emergency is not fun, and it's going to make it a lot harder to consider doing electrification, just because there's more steps involved. Sometimes you have to have an electrician come out to put in the circuit. So consider replacing a little bit early if it's getting near the end of its life. And then if you're doing electrical upgrades and you know you're going to have to run a new circuit for the stove and run a new circuit for the EV charger and for water heater, consider doing it all at once and combining it. Just it'll be less costly that way. Try to take advantage of the incentives that are available now. Some places have great financing as well. And like I mentioned, you can take the tax credits every year. So you could do a heat pump one year. There's a cap each year of $3,200. So you can do a heat pump one year, do a heat pump water heater the next year, and you could even do another heat pump the third year if you needed to. So yeah, great incentives right now. Looking for contractors, there's a few like one-stop shop companies that are out there. I'm really interested in that business model, if anybody has experience with those. Excel Energy also has a website where you can look up contractors for heating and cooling, for insulation. So that's a great place to start. They put in bold at the top, like the top 20 contractors that produce the most rebates for them. So you know that those are ones who are familiar with doing these types of projects and probably won't talk you out of putting in a heat pump. One thing that's really important, a lot more important with a heat pump than with a traditional furnace, is making sure the sizing is right. Because you don't want it undersized, because you want it to be comfortable on the coldest day. You don't want it to be oversized, because you're going to pay for that a lot. So it's really important to get a room-by-room manual J, that's kind of like the industry lingo for doing the load calculations, to determine the size of the heat pump. And there's trade-offs. Actually, you may want to undersize it a little bit, because you're like, okay, if it hits the design temperature for 3 hours in the middle of the night one night, I'm okay if the temperature droops a couple of degrees. So it's good to have a contractor who's like aware of all these trade-offs, and will help come up with a solution that works for you. And then finally, the point about the bills. If you do decide you want to turn off gas service entirely, then you can save even more on bills that way. Some of the most common questions: do I need to upgrade my electrical panel? Talked about this, and for my experience, I'm really excited to hear Sean's talk next month. There's some great resources out there for if you're kind of in my situation where you have a 100 amp main panel and you're worried about potentially needing to upgrade it. Then there's some strategies that are out there that can help you avoid that. Some cases it may not be too bad. It might cost $2,000 to put in a new panel. So you might just decide, I'm going to bite the bullet, I'm going to do it. In some cases it might be a lot more than that. If you have underground wiring, and you can call Excel and find out if they need to upgrade the wires coming to your house, because that can be a lot more expensive, especially if they're underground. So in those cases, you really want to take a look at some of these alternative strategies. There's devices that can do power sharing between different circuits. So you can have, most of the time it's an EV charger, but when your oven is running, then it temporarily stops your EV charger and puts the power into the oven. I think we lost power. Maybe low battery. Okay, I think we're back. So the circuit sharing devices, that's one. There's more and more, there's lower power plug-in appliances. So you can get a heat pump water heater now that plugs into a regular wall outlet. You don't need to run a new 240 volt circuit to it. There's 2 manufacturers now that have those 120 volt plug-in heat pump water heaters. And there's even electric ranges and cooktops that can plug into the wall, and they have a battery built in. So if your power goes out, you can take your fridge and plug it into your oven, and keep the fridge going during the power outage. And the washer and dryer is another one. You can get a heat pump dryer that is just plug in to the wall, 120 volts. You can get a combo washer and dryer that's 120 volts. So all these are strategies that you can use to put in lower power electric appliances that can avoid the need to upgrade your electrical panel if it's going to be an expensive upgrade. So that's one question. Other question is, might I need to upgrade my ductwork? So this is another thing where the size of the heat pump can be really important. If you get that load calculation for your house and it says the load is measured, your house needs 6 tons. They measure in tons. It's artifact from the days when you used to buy ice for air conditioning, and 1 ton of ice, that's how much cooling could be provided. But yeah, say 6 tons or 72,000 BTU per hour. If that's your heating load, you cannot buy a single heat pump to meet that heating load. The largest is 5 tons. If you want to have 2 duct systems, you can do that. So what do you do in that situation? Because a lot of furnaces out there are larger than that size, larger than 6 tons. They're probably oversized. I saw a study where, on average, furnaces in the U.S. are oversized by a factor of 2. So the other thing with that size is your existing duct system. So if your duct system is designed for use with a furnace, it might only be able to support a heat pump that is rated at 3 tons and not 5 tons. Now there's some things you can do. You can supplement a ductless heat pump with a ducted heat pump, and HVAC contractors can help you through all these decisions. But sometimes if you need to replace the whole duct system, that can be expensive, like $7,000 to put in like brand new ducts. So you want to avoid that. There's creative solutions you can come up with to do that. But again, insulation air sealing can go a long way to reduce the size of the heat pump that you need to put in. And some cases, doing that insulation and air sealing can help you avoid needing to upgrade the ductwork or avoid needing to do the electrical panel. So, and there's other creative things that HVAC contractors, if they're aware of it, they can help you through. Sometimes you could just switch out the few pieces of ductwork closest to the air handler, and that's enough to make it work and not be too restrictive. So anyway, those are some of the considerations. Another question that I've heard is, well, what if I'm going to sell my house soon and I don't know if it's worth it to put in a heat pump? Something that I was blown away at is, so there's a magazine, Remodeling Magazine. Every year they put out a cost versus value report where they do a survey of realtors to say, okay, if a homeowner spends this much money on different upgrades to their house, bathroom remodel, putting in new windows, how much of that value gets recouped in terms of their home resale value? This last year, top of the list was HVAC electrification. Cost recouped 103%. So your home value went up more than the cost of the project. Which is kind of amazing. So anyway, even if you think you might sell your house soon, I don't think that's a reason to not put in a heat pump. Okay, well, I've been talking long enough. I'm going to stop there, and hopefully we can get to some Q&A.
Thanks, Martin. How much did Excel charge you to disconnect the gas line?
0. I'd love to hear if people have other experiences, but they just said, if you turn it back on within 12 months, then you'll have to pay up for all those monthly charges you missed, because they don't want people to only use it seasonally. But yeah, I really didn't have any problem. I've heard other people, I think there's a cover of Denver Post or something where somebody had problems where Excel was kind of dragging their feet on turning it off, but we didn't have any problems.
Evaporative coolers work really well in Colorado also. And I run a 1/4 horsepower evaporative cooler for a 3,600 square foot house, and it gets wet air. And it's just so much nicer wet air in Colorado. But really, thank you for turning off your gas and your example to me. I need to do it also. Thank you.
What about boilers? So you said you had a boiler. I mean, I have a boiler, and it's been a nightmare trying to find a replacement for it.
Yeah. So when I was going through this process almost 10 years ago, I looked into, there are air-to-water heat pumps, or heat pumps that make hot water instead of hot air. Actually, in Europe, that's like the dominant type of heat pump, and lots of people are putting them in Europe, but they're not big here. And I'm starting to hear about them more. 10 years ago, there was maybe one available on the market, and it was going to be much more expensive, 4 times as expensive. And I think a big thing is it doesn't provide air conditioning. They do make ones where you can hook it up to a fan coil and a duct system to also provide cooling. But I just saw a presentation on these a couple weeks ago, and they're less efficient at this point, and they, more expensive, more of a custom solution. So I think you'll start to see them more, especially in higher end homes and people that like really want the radiant floor or baseboard radiators who really want that. You can pay for it but you're also going to need air conditioning. So you're going to be paying for a whole separate system if you want air conditioning and air to water heat pump. So anyway, I think they're out there, and I think you'll start to hear about them more, but I don't personally see them as a mass solution. Lots of homes that have boilers are going with the ductless heat pump solution. And it just comes down to do you want to put one of those indoor heads in every room, or do you want to put some ducts in? So I'm actually helping somebody else at the church here through a process of this, and they have a boiler, so it'll be interesting to see what they end up going with. Yeah, I mean, you could put in additional radiators if you have radiant floor, like that is designed to work with a lower temperature. But if you have radiators, you can put in extra radiators, and you can make up for it. So there are solutions, but it's going to be more custom, more expensive.
One thing surprised me. You mentioned that you recommended or even thought of it as being required to have a manual J, because the price tag on those is hefty. They typically, I mean, you have a very small house, but for a bigger house, you're easily looking at, as I did, $2,500.
From your HVAC contractor to do a manual.
Well, actually, from a contractor who does nothing but manual J's.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's also again a garbage in, garbage out thing, because you really depend on that contractor to be extremely anal about it and not miss any of the many parameters, from the volume of air in your house to possible leakage, to get it right. I was surprised to hear there's now 80% of HVAC contractors' work is on heat pumps.
That was for one contractor in particular.
Oh, that was for one particular one.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, at the moment, the expertise is building slowly among HVAC companies. They've been slow to adopt heat pump technology, have been dismissive of it for a long time, and prefer to keep installing poor quality AC units and advise people not to even consider heat pumps. But that is changing.
Yeah, I think some of them are seeing it as an opportunity.
So on the mini splits, we see them up on the wall pretty high up, which is interesting because, heat rises. And so, the return on it is right there at the same place. And so I was just curious, especially in our case where we have a house full of vaulted ceilings, how mini splits work, or ducted is better, or how that works when it's way up high. Thank you.
Yeah, you can still do mini splits with vaulted ceilings. I still see those. The lower down the better for heating, but it's more of an aesthetic and not being in the way of furniture thing, I think. And so I don't think the penalty is that big or that much to worry about. They do make ones that are mounted on the floor, where it looks like a radiator and just blows air out of this box near the floor. There are other options though. They make ones that are more like concealed in the ceiling. Kind of looks like a ceiling tile. So there's other options out there. But I think for a room with tall ceilings, it would be fine to put a mini split.
I don't know what the square footage of your house is, but can you speak to using the one mini split and the comfort, the cooling and heating comfort that your house is able to have, just depending on that one source?
Yep. Yeah, so like I was saying, when the doors are open during the day, the heat gets to those rooms. I think we can pull that off because we have insulated walls. They're not the best insulated walls. They're not like super insulated, passive house. But they're decent. There are 15 wall cavity insulation now. The windows are decent. So it generally works. We have the cove heaters in those rooms to add additional heat, and you also get radiant heat from that, which feels nice. And yeah, when the doors are closed, the cove heaters can add additional heat. The cooling is a little bit more challenging, right? So yeah, there are times when I wish that we had, cooling directly provided to the bedrooms, but yeah, not too many days out of the year.
Would you add one more mini split somewhere in your house?
I don't know. I'd have to consult my wife, who's an architect and cares a lot about the aesthetics and stuff. Like I said, if I was doing it today, I might consider building a box in the attic, popping up the attic like a foot or 2 feet, and then putting a concealed, really compact air handler up there with really short duct runs to supply the different rooms. But yeah, that would be more expensive though. So there's always these trade-offs.
Yeah, so 18 months ago, July 2022, I was trying to convert my house to a heat pump system. I had already super insulated my house. I had solar on the roof. I had an EV charging station. I did everything I could to make the house super efficient. And the last thing was just that I had this very dated natural gas water heater and furnace. So I had a central ducted system through my house. And so I called a number of companies. And at that time, even though I've worked in the energy industry for many years, I didn't really have the right contacts for the companies that do heat pump systems at that time. So I was calling all the big HVAC companies. So I called and asked them, this is what I want. I want a quote to convert to a ducted heat pump system. And they said, sure, we do that. And they'd come out. And I learned then that really this would be the first time.
Oh.
And the quotes that I would get for my little 1964 house were in the range of $40,000 to $80,000.
Wow.
And so it was really problematic. Since then, I've learned there are companies that could have done that project for $20,000, still a little pricey, and that particular year was the year that there were no energy credits or tax credits or anything.
Right.
So now I've come a little farther. I did upgrade to a 99% efficient condensing gas furnace, which I didn't even know there was that efficiency at the time, but I couldn't get away from it then, but now I have another house and I'm working on that. And but it's really been challenging, and I've learned that you really have to do your homework. You have to know which companies really know what they're doing and can give you a fair price, and not tell you that, well, you can do that, but you're going to have to replace all your gas lines all the way out to the gas main in the street to 2-inch lines from my half-inch line, and that's going to cost me $80,000 just for that, and before you pay $80,000. And so just all these kinds of things are just such nonsense, and there's still a lot of that, especially with the big companies. So you really have to be careful and make sure that you're working with a company that specializes in those things. So I just wanted to share that experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. This is a question going back to your house is all electrified. What do you do during the power outage?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, and yeah, I heard you talking about Tesla Powerwall earlier. Yeah, so we have solar now, but we don't have a battery, so we can't use the solar power during a power outage. Maybe eventually, it'll pencil out, and the economics for using a battery will be there, but not right now for us. So one thing I did is I actually got so we have two EVs. One's a plug-in hybrid, and I have a pure sine wave inverter that's rated at 2,000 watts. So if I need to, I can hook that up to my 12-volt battery in either of our EVs and use those batteries. and run the fridge at least. Can even run a 1500 watt space heater off of that if I need to. Can't run the mini split. I might be able to run the mini split off of that, but it's not, can't plug it into it. So anyway, it's not a great solution, but have that. I'm sure vehicle to load, the idea of using your electric vehicle and that the battery, the huge battery that's in an electric vehicle, using that to be able to power your house during a power outage, I'm sure that kind of thing will become better and more streamlined. There's some cars that can do it now, but it's still kind of pricey to do that. And then there's always we have a camping stove, so if we need to boil a bunch of water, bring it in the house and take a hot bath, we can do that. It's not a great solution, but.
Yeah, since the Tesla Powerwall battery was mentioned, the newest version of that, number 3, is an interesting one, especially for people like many of the enthusiasts in the room who may already have an older PV system, but since money was short or you added an electric vehicle, you may want to upgrade your solar system. And with the Tesla Powerwall, if you have that battery, you can put your old system right into the battery, connect a new system, forget about the old inverters, which have a shorter lifespan than solar, and you're good to go. Plus, they now have really high incentives for the installation of a battery, especially if you trust Excel enough to give them license to draw from your battery for 60 events per year, down to 40% of the charge that you have. That's when you get really massive rebates. But Jamie here with Namaste Solar has something to add to that.
Just a little bit. So if you have an existing solar system and you're converting DC power to AC power with the microinverters and bringing it down into your main, you can use a Tesla Powerwall 3, but right now it's not AC coupled, it's DC coupled, which means that you have to have a gateway in order to switch that over to DC power to put it into the battery, then take it out. The advantage of that is that if you have the right kind of microinverters, during a power outage, you can use the sunlight during the day to power your house, charge a battery, and you can use a battery at night. And depending on the size of the loads that you're running, you could potentially go like that for quite a while.
Would you mind talking about demand charges and how to reduce those using a battery?
So yeah, during time of use rate, which we're in Centennial, so that time of use rate, it goes to almost double. What we see some people doing is what's called peak load shaving. They will set up their batteries to discharge during peak load times. And so therefore you can kind of cut back on your electricity that you're using by using your battery. So the Tesla Powerwall, the DC rated one, has 11.5 kilowatt DC, or 11.5 kilowatt string inverter, but still, if you have an inverter and it's under warranty and it's in good shape, there's no reason to get rid of it. So what you want to do is then run it to a gateway. It's a lot of electrification. What they did is they stopped making Tesla Powerwall at the end of March, and they started with Tesla Powerwall 3, and they have then continued to roll out information, which drives our electrical guys nuts. But that being said, if you don't have a house that has solar on it already, it is actually only a couple $1,000s more to be able to get a solar system with the string inverter and the battery, given the fact that Excel pays you almost half of the battery cost up front.
About demand charges, this is actually something that also concerns this building, this church, because our highest demand is, you guessed it, Sunday between 8 and noon when everything is on. And we still have this old theater lighting that is incredibly power hungry. And what demand charges do is the utility, and it's not just Excel, that's how they all operate, says if you have, we will take your highest usage during the months, your highest 15 minutes, and we'll charge you a set amount based on that maximum demand or load. And that can be crushing. That's often several thousands of dollars. And many companies who are trying to minimize their expenses have therefore installed all kinds of batteries in order to shift that load onto the battery when they don't need it, or when the prices are high. The key word is arbitrage. That's a little different. That's when you have excess power and you don't need a lot, and you sell it when the price is high, and vice versa. So these are all options that we have, but I thought it was useful to mention more about solar, because even though it is an investment that takes several years to pay back, your granite kitchen countertop does not have any kind of payback at all. Thank you very much, Eric, and let's have a round of applause.